This is my first time doing this, so maybe not. All right. Good morning. I'm Jack Zimmer, the president of the congregation, for about an hour more, officially. Actually, about only 56 minutes, but who's counting? All right. In these wonderful, unusual times, we have another wonderful, unusual congregational meeting in that we are live with what looks like already enough for a quorum, so that's good. We are also live streaming, but for those of you who are on live streaming, you're only going to be able to observe. There's no interaction on the live stream. So you're just going to be watching. Now, if you want to actually interact and be a part of the voting block, you need to be on Zoom. And there were a couple of emails that went out on Wednesday and Friday, I think, from Jill. That would allow you to link into the Zoom, and we have several people that are on Zoom right now. So they are actually going to be participating. For those of you on Zoom, when we vote, we're going to assume that you're a yes, but if you're a no, all you have to do is talk to Jill. She's got her earphones on, and she will record the nays, and if the nays have it, then we'll have something that will go down in the vote. Let's see, I think that's all of the announcements that we have. Anything else that I missed? We got the congregational meeting. I think we're good. So with that, we're going to call the meeting to order at 9, whatever Russ says, 9:17, I guess is when I started talking about. Yeah, pretty good. All right, close enough. All right. So we're going to begin with opening prayer. With Pastor. I'm going to review the agenda real quick to make sure we're so what we're doing is stalling now in the TV business. I'm getting the stretch signal. I'm going to review the agenda and then we'll probably be ready for that. So we're going to have we have established a quorum, so that's good. We got that clicked off there. Approval of last year's congregational meeting minutes. We'll do the financial report. The financial report will not only include the year-end statement from Jim Lameau, but also the presentation of our budget for 2022. That budget has been reviewed and approved and recommended by the council, and that'll be the budget that we'll be presenting to you. We'll also have election of the new church council. Many members are repeating, some are going off. We have a new president and vice president, and we'll go through that when we get to that. And then we have several reports, my annual report, the pastor's report, and probably a little bit of highlighting of the staff reports, all of which are on our website. You can click there and get the annual review report on the website as well. So we won't go through all of those in great detail, but we'll do that, and hopefully then we'll close right on time. So this parrot and this priest walk into a bar, and the priest says, "I think it's time to pray."
The Lord be with you. Holy and gracious God, as we gather in this unique time and place, we simply ask your presence in our work this morning. That ultimately, Lord, that what we achieve today brings about your will, allows this church to be a healthy and valuable member of this community and the world at large. Through your Son we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Next slide. We have our quorum established. Yay. Thank you for coming through the bitter cold weather. We're from Iowa. They got 9 inches of snow and it's 10 degrees up there. So cold is kind of a relative thing, isn't it? And we provided with you through the website and hard copy the minutes from the January 17th meeting last year. Okay. All right. I was asked to repeat the directions for the folks who are on Zoom, just to make sure everybody heard that. If you're on Zoom, you're an active participant and are logged in as a participant here at our meeting, along with all the folks that are here live. When we take any votes, we're going to assume that you are a yes on that, so you don't need to do anything. If you're a nay, then you go ahead and wave at Jill and say nay, and she'll record that. She has her earphones on. If you have a question that you want to ask, and during our discussion periods, all you have to do is ask Jill, and then she'll relay that to me as well, because she will be interacting with you. So there's our Zoom instructions. For those who are watching online, you are simply watching. You're not a participant. You're just observing. You will not be able to be counted in as part of our congregational meeting. You will not be able to vote. Your presence is appreciated online, but you will not be an active member of the congregational meeting. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the January 17, 2021 minutes by a raising of a hand, and Sandy and Susie. Discussion? Questions? Concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried. Next item for business. We'll be looking at the financial report, and I will turn this hot mic. And it is pretty lively, Jim.
I'm actually glad that it's a hot mic, because on this morning, a hot mic is much better than a cold mic. So, few items before we actually dive into the report. I'm going to take a moment for questions at the end of the financial report, and then also at the end of the budget. I do have 5 printed copies at the front of the sanctuary here. If anyone would like a physical copy of either the budget or the financial report, Caitlin has been voluntold to hand those out if you guys just want to raise your hands, and she can pass that out to you. Also, for those who do have questions, we have 3 microphone stands set up at the front of the sanctuary. Please be sure to speak into the microphone prior to asking your question, just to ensure everyone online has a chance to hear you. So, with that, if there's no other questions, does anyone request a copy of the physical version of either the financial report or the budget for your personal review? Good. Caitlin got off easy this morning. So, first of all, can we skip backwards? Keep going, back, okay, go forward one more slide. Sorry about that. So we're going to actually start with talking about an overview of the revenue that we had as a congregation here in 2021. And you can see from our pledged offerings and our non-pledged offerings, our actuals were $15,000 short versus our budget. On pledged offerings, we had a pledged offering giving of $212,540 last year, and a non-pledged of $171,336. And there's one thing I do want to mention. You'll see on the slides here, there are some errors in the over and under category. Please disregard those. The math got screwed up on that one. So one thing I did want to do is recognize the congregation for your continued giving throughout the COVID cycle here. Your continued giving is what allows us to still function as a church. As I was thinking about it this morning, that has been the critical factor that's allowed Tree of Life to continue to do what we do during these challenging times over the last 2 years. We did receive a PPP loan last year for the amount of $29,000 and $155. That was forgiven middle of the year, so we did not budget for that, but we did receive that. We brought in an additional $46,000 from all other forms of giving and revenue generation. And then finally, we did borrow $12,000 from seeds as well. That gave us a total revenue in 2021 of $471,641. Next slide, please. So this actually breaks down our expenses into a variety of categories: staff, mortgage, administration and benevolence, building, utilities and grounds, insurance and other, youth ministry and fellowship, evangelism and worship. So just some highlights that I want to capture on here. You'll see that our staff number is low relative to our budget. The reason for that is we actually had two factors in there. One is that our cleaning crew, we swapped them from a staff position in 2021 over to a service company that we're using, so they actually started coming underneath the building expenses mid-year last year. Additionally, when we built the budget last year, we had uncertainty around the timing of when we would bring on a youth minister. That happened a little bit later in the year than we planned originally in the budget, so that was another reason for the shortfall. Mortgage, you'll see that we're a little bit over on that. Reason for that is we actually refinanced our mortgage early in the middle of last year. We actually got an interest rate drop on that. We also were able to extend the lock period on that loan. It's a 5-year ARM is what we've got right now on the church mortgage. There was a $2,000 in closing costs that we paid for that, but it's actually a significant amount of savings annually. It's around $3,000, $4,000 a year that we're actually saving on our church mortgage. So even though we actually paid $2,000 more in closing costs, it's only $1,000 because of the savings we were already accounting for at that point. Administration and benevolence, the reason that one is high, we had a number of events last year associated with like the February blizzard. We also had some one-time costs associated with swapping our copier contract, and while we had to pay a little bit on that side, it also was reimbursed from the other company that we swapped over to. So shows as a number there, but it actually was made up for on the revenue side. It's just the double booking accounting that we're doing. Buildings and utilities, nothing really to say on that one. Insurance and other, everything is good there. I do want to recognize staff, both Pastor and Jill, for the great job they did at the end of the year getting rid of all of our unallocated funds. We exited 2021 with $0 in our unallocated funds. Everything has been allocated. So great job, guys. And I know Jill has got a passion for staying on top of that. She brags to me every time we talk on the phone about how that's going. Yeah, she actually, the last cycle, she actually reconciled before the bill was even played. So we're actually doing much better with that now. So I want to congratulate and recognize you guys for that one. Youth ministry and fellowship, that was a lot lower. We actually had two effects there. One is that we had a lot fewer attendees to camp. We also did not do a mission trip last year with COVID. And then there was all the other impacts of COVID-related impacts on our youth program. And then there was also just the impacts of COVID across the board on that one. And then finally, on evangelism and worship, we did incur costs last year around equipment for live streaming. If you remember, mid-year, we actually did a adoptive project to actually fund some of those cameras and some of the other stuff that allows us to provide high-quality streaming online. The challenge from a budgetary standpoint is the adoptive project shows up on the revenue side, the increased amount shows up on the worship side. So it's just from a balancing of the budget standpoint, that's why you see the increase there. Can we go to the next slide, please? So overall for 2021, we had a total revenue come in of $471,641. That does include the funds that were borrowed from seeds. It also includes the PPP loan. That compares to our budget value of $443,400. And then on the expense side, we had spent $469,072 versus our budget of $474,577. That actually left us under budget for the year of $2,569. If you look at that as well, you can actually see when we approved the budget this time last year, we went in with a faith component of roughly $31,177. That's the shortfall between what revenue was and what expense was. And what you'll see is that's a common thing when we put the budget together, is there is always a faith component that we take, and every year that I'm aware of, we've actually been able to make that up. Any questions from the congregation before I move on to budget? Okay, with that, let's move on to the budget. Oh, actually, no, we're going to actually take another step. Sorry, we've got two slides, so I jumped the gun a little bit. So I want to also give a quick review of dedicated funds and of our balance sheet. So the dedicated funds, what you'll see is we did use approximately $3,000 of the disaster relief last year as well. Those are reflected in the numbers here. Apologize for the small font size. You can actually access these documents in the financial report. Additionally, we did have $7,200 in the seminary scholarship at the beginning of the year. That check was paid out to Bunny, who's still in seminary up in Iowa. back in January of last year. So we actually have diluted most of those funds from it. You will also see that our value of the seeds account dedicated fund stayed the same last year. And you're probably asking yourself, how can that actually be when we borrowed $12,000 against seeds? And the reason for that is we have a portion of our seeds balance sitting in an endowment, and that endowment did really well last year. It actually grew in value by approximately $12,000. So the increase in value offset the loan that we made against seeds. And as a side note there, we will continue to monitor our cash flow in the general account, and as we're able to on a monthly basis, we're going to try and pay as much of that value against seeds. It's just that seeds is also how we bridge ourselves if we actually have a small cash shortfall in the month as well. So we actually borrow against that and bring it over. And that's really where a lot of the $12,000 came from. Next slide. This is actually a review of our balance sheet. Really the only two items that I want to discuss on here, you can look at the numbers yourselves, but one is around the two liabilities that we have outstanding on here. One is the church mortgage. We actually paid about $47,000 off on our mortgage principal last year. So you can see that balance went from $1.208 million down to $1.161 million. And we're going to continue to pay that off as possible. As your treasurer, I really do not want to start increasing the principal on that mortgage again. I think that's something for our long-term financial health that we need to do. The other one is New Seeds for Growth. You'll see that the amount that we owe to New Seeds went from $109,000 up to $122,000, and that is associated with the $12,000 that we borrowed. And it's actually 110. It's a rounding number on that. So with that, that is the end of my 2021 financial report. Anyone have any questions? I'll give just a few seconds for people to come up to the mics. Jill, is there any questions on Zoom that we had come in? And also, I do want to mention, if anyone has any questions on this whatsoever, feel free to approach me at any time, either after Mass or also via email, and I'm more than willing to have conversations on all of this. Would love to. With that, let's move into the budget. So Jack has asked that we entertain a motion to accept the financial report. We have Julie as first, and then Mark as seconding that. Did you get that, Russ? Mark Template. Any discussions on anything with the financial report? Okay, in that case, we will have a quick vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. So we have accepted the financial report. Okay, moving on to the budget. I'm also trying to make this brief. I know Pastor said he has like a 45-minute sermon today, so we want to make sure we all get this in. Excellent, excellent. Overlaps with the football games. So we're going to actually start with the revenue side on the budget. So a little bit of detail here. What we actually do for this process from the revenue side is this starts with the stewardship campaign that we ran last year. I want to thank everyone who actually responded to the stewardship campaign. That helps give us confidence in the revenue numbers that we use to put together the budget. So that's important that you guys get those into us because it helps us understand where the uncertainties are in the budget process. So for the 2022 budget the stewardship program, we had $227,000 of pledged offerings come in. Incrementally to that, we also look at what our giving has been and what our revenue has been in past years to come up with estimates for the other categories. So non-pledged offerings, these are offerings that come in from individuals who did not pledge throughout the year. That usually falls into a number of different categories. People who either just don't pledge through the stewardship or visitors to the sanctuary, one-offs throughout the year, but we still make a projection of what those values are. And this year that came into $169,000 approximately. PPP loan, I am not anticipating us having that opportunity next year to participate in that program. If we do qualify for the PPP loan, I can guarantee you that I will look into it and get ourselves into that program as much as we can. That PPP loan that we've received over the last 2 years has been very helpful for us to survive through COVID as well. We actually came in roughly at about $70,000 of funds from PPP loan that has all been forgiven. And then finally, all other revenue, we're projecting $69,000 for that. And what's that? Yeah, that was over 2 years. We got the first one for approximately $40,000 in 2020, and then the one for roughly $30,000 in 2021. As far as all other revenue, one thing I do want to mention in here, and you'll see it on the expense side as well, is we built this budget with the expectation that COVID will continue to diminish in our community and things will start returning to normal. Associated with that, we expect to see some of the revenue generators that had existed prior to COVID, things such as garage sale, murder mystery dinner, but we're not calling it that anymore. They're looking at what some of the other opportunities are. Talk to Ikira and Jill about that if you want to have some ideas there. Sorry to throw you guys on the spot there. Other things as well as increased building usage. We're going to continue our relationship with the YMCA and them utilizing our space in the summer. All told, what that means is that we're just expecting to see increased revenue just as the community comes out of COVID. You'll see that on the expense side as well, just with some of the expenses that we've got as we come out of COVID and expecting to have more activities going on within the church. So what that brings us to is the total revenue for 2022 in the budget is $465,084. Moving on to the expense side. For each of these individual categories, we're going to start off with staff. You'll see the staff is actually getting an increase from 227 to 247. That is primarily due to the increase in salary that we gave to all the staff here in the proposed budget. It's really tied to inflation. IRS is saying that you're seeing about 6% increase in cost of living. We had a conversation about that within the council when we approved this budget back in December and decided that that was the right thing to tie it to, just based off of what we've seen inflation doing over the course of the last year. Mortgage, you'll see that we actually have a savings on that one of approximately $3,500. That again ties to the improved interest rate that we got with refinancing the mortgage. Administration and benevolence is down. The reason for that is that we just don't have that one-time copier impact in there next year. Buildings and utilities, you'll see a slight increase on that, and the reason for that is that we're actually carrying the cleaning crew the entire year in 2022 as a building expense versus a staff expense. Insurance and other, there's an exciting thing here, and I'll take pause for applause after this. The IRS penalty that we've been paying is fully paid off in next year, mid-year, so we actually start seeing some savings on that. I'm also going to be very excited not to have to explain that every year. Youth, you'll see youth goes from a spend of about $2,500 to $19,700. That's expecting that we're actually going to see an increase in activity next year. And some of those things, just to reflect on there, we met together as a small group in November to discuss this. Youth gathering, we budgeted for 5 individuals attending youth gathering up in Minneapolis this year. I think we have 2, Ikira, or have more students come on? We have 2 of our congregational members who are attending that at this point. We have budget for 3 more. So if we know of other people in the congregation who want to attend, I highly encourage you to get with Ikira so that way we can get them there. We also assumed that we would have 10 students or 10 kids attending Luther Hill over the course of the summer. So that's the numbers went into the budget. We also put money in for Sunday school. We put money in for VBS, and we also put money in for multiple youth events. In addition to that, we did put money in there for fellowship and some continuing education as well. So these are all the kind of categories that we're expecting to see increases as hopefully the COVID pandemic goes down throughout the course of the year. And then finally, on worship, we did create a separate category in worship for AV technologies. And that's really because we didn't have a good place to put in all of the cameras, the microphones, all of these things that we've been using during the pandemic here. And to be honest with you, it's something that we as a council want to continue to do, is offer the online opportunity for folks. I think it's just a good thing to do, and it's the right place to go. But we also recognize we're going to have some costs associated with that, and we wanted to put the right place into the budget to actually reflect those. So the value that we've got in there right now in the budget is less than we had this year, given some of the capital improvements we made this year, but we do expect that there will be some costs occurred as we have to do maintenance and repair and possibly replacement on some stuff. But haven't identified anything specific. It's more just to account for, hey, we know mistake, or we know things are going to break and need to get fixed. So that brings us to the overall summary for the budget. We are projecting a revenues at $465,084. We are proposing a expense budget to the congregation of $487,711. Sorry. So that actually gives us a difference between revenues and expense, the faith component, if you will, of $22,627. That is our proposal to the congregation of the budget that council reviewed and put forward to you guys in December. With that, I'd like to take a motion to approve. Mary?
Yes.
Before your question, Mary, come up to the microphone.
Okay.
We'll have a motion on the floor, and then we'll have discussion.
Correct. That was my, sorry, I wasn't clear with that. I'd like to get the motion, then we'll have the conversation and then questions and discussion. So motion, Mark Template. And Pat Rao seconded. And with that, we'll open the floor to questions.
Was there anything budgeted for Stephen Ministry?
We did not budget in the general fund for Stephen Ministries. If you look at the dedicated funds for Stephen Ministries, we have approximately, excuse me while I flip through my sheets here.
Okay.
I thought it was, so Stephen's Ministries currently has $4,000 sitting in a dedicated fund for that. We fully recognize Stephen's Ministries as an important ministry that we have in our congregation.
Right.
We just want to try and utilize those dedicated funds to fund the activity next year, and then we'll make up any differences based off of what goes unused.
If I have to have people trained as Stephen leaders, this is quite a bit of expense, and if I need more than the 4,000, I'll let you know.
Perfect. I appreciate that. So we will let me and whoever our president, in case we get any surprise candidates after this, I don't want to.
I'm not really worried about this at all.
So Ted?
I just wanted to add that money in the restricted was raised by the Stephen Ministry to send somebody off for management training, and that's been canceled the last 2 years because of COVID, and so that's what that money's for.
Okay. No, I was not aware of that. Like I said, I moved into the treasury role approximately 2 years ago after Jim Velsa's unfortunate passing, so I appreciate you letting me know it. And to be honest with you guys, I've been doing this for 2 years. I don't have a history with it before that. If there are other things that I am not aware of or don't know, please feel free to educate me and inform me as that. As Lisa tells me all the time, there's a lot of stuff I don't know and get wrong often, so. Any other questions or comments? Please feel free to come up to the microphone. Jill, is there anything online? With that, I'd like to make a motion that to vote on, or I'd like to take the vote then, if there's no other questions, on approving the 2022 budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We have approved the budget for 2022. And then just one final note, if anyone has any more questions, again, feel free to come up and approach me. I'd like to run this as much as we can, or we will run this as an open book. So that way, any questions you guys have, I want to make sure we have fully transparent on all of our financial matters. So thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jack.
Y'all deserve a round of applause. A, for what you got done in 21, and how well 22 really looks, huh? We don't have time to thank everybody, but Jim and Ted and Heidi and Jill have just done a great job on writing what we thought was going to be a very tumultuous year last year and setting up for this year. So it's nice to be in that kind of shape. Next item for business is the election of our council members for 2022. Next slide. Give you a little background on this. Outgoing members are Richard Chopper and me. So we got two people that are going to be replaced. Everybody's happy that and I'm sure that was for me leaving, not Richard. It was sad for Richard. Yeah, okay. All right. So those are the two members that are going off the board, off the council. Next slide. So we've got two open positions created on the council. The recommendations forward from the nominating committee and approved by the council are Mark Template, who will be serving a 2-year term, which makes him eligible for 2 more 3-year terms, by the way. Mark, you want to stand, please? See, so we could get Mark for 8 years, maybe. And Deb Zimmer is coming on to serve a 3-year term starting this year. Deb, stand up. And we also have the re-election of Peggy Little, who has served and is volunteered to serve again. So those are our 3 members that will be elected and re-elected in the council for this year. You can sit down now. We'll have a vote in a second. Next slide. Just so you know that all the positions that are officer positions are actually appointments. They're members of the council, and then they're appointed either by the council or at the president's discretion. And the appointments include Jim Lameau continuing as treasurer. There's Jim right there. Heidi Beckerman. Oh, yes. He deserves a round of applause. He really does. I don't know if there's a hardest job on inside the administrative thing, but for me, it would be the financial stuff. There's weekly work on this, and just a lot of energy goes into that. And I think Ted Dinklage gets a silver star because he's been doing this for about, 87 years now, and 88, sorry. And Russ Bleasy will be continuing as secretary in an appointed position. Not the best looking secretary, but he is very effective. So, right. Pardon me? Yes, didn't I? Yeah, I did. There's Miss Heidi back there. All right. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the nominating committee and council's recommendations. Yes, excuse me. I'll accept. Oh, okay. For Jim, Heidi, and Russ? No, recommending. Oh, yeah, next time. Those are appointments. Next slide. I thought we were at the next slide. There we go. That's the one right there. Yep. For the 3 members who have been nominated and recommended by the council and the nominating committee, Mark Template, Deb Zimmer, and Peggy Little, a motion to accept. I'm going to take a motion first, and then there'll be discussions there. Would you like to make the motion, Diane? Sure. Okay, good. Yes. Larry Anderson? Yep. All right, now, and if you have a question, I'll remind you, just jump up and run to a microphone, and I'll ask you, why are you standing in front of that microphone, madam?
Well, you don't want me to run.
Walk nice, slowly, and very dignified, I might say. Yes.
I thought Mark's was a 2-year term.
It is.
That says
Oh,
3.
well, there's a little typo there, I guess.
Okay,
Right.
I just wanted to be sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doggone it. We almost got by with that one, I almost got Mark to serve 3 3-year terms. Dang it. All right. All right. Any other questions? All right. All in favor of that nomination? Aye. Hands raised. Any objection? If you do, you got to serve on council, so be wise on that one. All right. Okay. Motion accepted. Congratulations and welcome, new council members. Next slide. These are also appointments inside the church council, but we certainly want the congregation to ratify and be behind these folks. So stepping into the president's position and the president's position is a 2-year term, and vice president is as long as the president wants that person to be there and stay in and become the president eventually, down the road a little bit. So it could be forever, Sandy. All right. So Kevin Solberg and Sandy McCarthy, please stand. We're in good hands, folks. A motion to accept the recommendations, John Stevenson, Jim Lameau. Boy, there was all kinds of hands. Anybody object to that one? All right.
Sergeant at Arms.
Sergeant of Arms has a
You
question.
do need to fix the dates, though, if this is going into, because 2 years would be 22 to 24, not to 23. And in the previous slide, it was wrong, too, so
No,
we got it,
no, the 2-year term is serving in 22 and 23.
23, but how the math? What, 22? Plus, but it's very unclear. That's I think what Diane was trying to make, is that 20, yeah, no, at the end
Well-
the end of 23.
You serve 2 years, 22 and 23.
But again,
It still needs to say 2024.
yeah, till 224, because when you stop at the beginning of 24. Yeah. I don't know.
Tomato. Gotcha.
Well, I mean, but no, it needs to be
The,
clear, because
uh,
that's why I don't know why I'm still on council, because I thought I was done right now, because it's how you guys keep your records, so that's what I'm just saying, and not, yeah.
Yeah. That is a good point, although this is the way it's always been recorded, but yeah. So the point is that the annual meeting doesn't happen until January. You're actually serving 2 weeks. Yeah. I tried to get out of it 2 weeks early myself, and Kevin wouldn't let me, so I guess that makes sense. Thank you, Julie. Sergeant of Arms, can't get anything past her. But we've already approved that, and so we can move on. Congratulations, Kevin and Sandy. Thank you for stepping up in the leadership role here for the church council and for this congregation. Yes. Would you like to get in front of a microphone? I know that this is pretty scary for you.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that the Congregational Council take a vote in support of our council president and vice president.
Yeah, I thought we just did that.
We took a round of applause, but we actually did not take
All
a
right.
vote.
This is a motion of support.
It would need a second before there could be a vote,
All right.
though.
Pastor has motion and Jim Lameau has second. A motion to support our leaders, specifically president and vice president, in their service to the congregation. All right. And there's been a motion and there's been second. Any discussion on that? I love that motion. All in favor? All right. I'm not even going to ask for a nay on that one. Yeah. I noticed Karen was kind of, she was a little conflicted on that one. All right. And just for your information, here is the folks that are existing members continuing as inside their terms of their council positions. When the president and vice president get to this level, if their term expires as a council member, it doesn't expire as serving as president. So if you're thinking of a loophole, there's not one. I looked at that myself. All right. So we got folks that have not been mentioned, actually, is Julie Timmons, Tom Gross, and Pat Rao are continuing on their role. So it's a really good council. It was a great council that I had for 4 years, and I think it's actually getting even better and stronger. So thank you all for stepping up. The right people come at the right time. Jim.
Hey, I'm going to take a page out of Pastor's book and just like to make a motion to have one more recognition, and that's for you with all the work and help that you actually provided over the last few years, especially in light of all the COVID pandemic and everything else.
All right. There's a discussion. Any objection? All right, so everybody that loves me, wave. You hear what you want to hear, you know? Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Pastor. Yeah. We'll just pass on that. We made a statement. We'll just make it that. I don't think we say. All right. So I'm trying not to get emotional. Thank you a lot. All right, on to our reports here. We've got about 20 minutes to get all this done, so we'll talk as fast as we can. And being from the north, I can do that. So What I'm going to do with my president's report is kind of talk about the year in review a little bit. And I'm actually going back to some of the things that we said we were going to try to get done in 2021, which was a year of uncertainty, obviously. One of the things that we had decided upon was that we had to kind of look at this year, the 2021 that we just completed, as a recovery year, almost a ministry restart, if you will, and that we really needed to get back to basics. And we knew that it would be a lot of energy required when the engine stopped, and the engine was going pretty good in 18 and 19. When we ran into the pandemic, things were moving along quite rapidly, and we were thinking very long range and strategic in that, and we realized that this year, the year that we just completed, 2021, we couldn't be that long range, and we had to be more short range and tactical, and also make sure that we remained focused on those things. And so there were a lot of things that you probably saw us do, but all of them kind of evolved around just 4 different areas that really covered a lot of things, which is this next slide. So we put things in 4 quadrants: worship, community use of buildings, staffing, and stewardship. It's not that all the other stuff kind of sat by itself. It was just that those are the 4 things that the council wanted to make sure that we were doing as best as we possibly could in all those areas. And I'll just do a little highlight of some of those things that we wanted to get done and how we came through all of that. We wanted to make sure, first of all, that our presence online would only get better, that we'd take advantage of what we'd learned in that first year, which was a tough year. Everyone who were volunteers and staff, it was a steep growing curve on that. We had dabbled in having an online presence, really. I think we could say that now from where we are then to right now. We're pretty doggone good at that. And we wanted to make sure that the things that we learned in the process of that had a good spillover into the live worship and all those things, because we really still feel that having you all here face to face, breathing the same doggone air and sitting next to each other is really where we need to be. But at the same time, we know how much appreciated the online service has been and will continue to be. And it's a reach out, a reach far greater than the little 20-mile circle that most people come to church in from here. We wanted to do this, but also we wanted to be safe. That was a A1 number on that. Kevin took charge of maintaining that safety, and he did just a great job on that. But at the same time, we always were, each month, how can we get back to live church? How can we get people back in here? And how can we do it safely? And I think you saw us kind of progress. There were little baby steps all along the way that I think we did a great job. And I know some of us got COVID, but I don't think anybody got COVID from coming to church. That might not be true, but as best we can tell, no one got it from inside. It came from their outside world on that. So we're very happy with that. We knew there was an important value in terms of expanding to the number of, I'm still on that last slide there, yeah. Of expanding our volunteers. There was two dynamics going there. One was our staff dwindled. We had a smaller number of staff, of people on board, and with the online presence, there were more volunteers needed on worship day. And so we worked to try to get 18 B team backups to all of that. That was a real challenge, and I think it still continues to be a real challenge. We actually still talked about having 100% participation in our congregation, that everybody is doing something. And I think it's a great goal that you'll never attain, but if we keep working to try to get to 100%, maybe we'll get to where we need to get on that. And the other is just, the other part of that was to adjust and adapt to the reduced staff, and particularly with our pastor, someone who can lead us in services and give communion, and to take a little load off the preaching. And so we did some pretty cool things, and I'm pretty sure pastor's going to talk all about that. So that was one of the things in that. On the next slide. So, on community and building, next. Yep. Our number one goal was to restart and prioritize youth ministry. that took a hit, obviously, during the pandemic, and the flock got scattered, if you will. And so we wanted to find ways to restart that, re-energize that. We needed, obviously, we needed a youth pastor to do that. And we wanted to make sure that we found the right person in terms of the chemistry and the energy and the passion. And we knew it would take a while. And as Jim was talking about, it took a little longer than we thought, but we found Ikera. And so I think a lot of seeds has been planted, and the dirt's been fluffed, and it's been watered and fertilized, and I think we'll see some nice growth there this year as a result of all that. We also wanted to know, because the pandemic was separating people and keeping people isolated, we really wanted to spend some time and figure out ways to better touch the homebound and the hospitalized. And I think Pastor will probably talk about that, some of the things he was doing with Diane, actually, on one morning a week, and some other things like that. So I'll let that go with that. Supporting Steve Ministry remain a priority. It's always been an important ministry. We're so happy to have it here. And we just assumed that ministry was going to be called into action even more and more. So we wanted to make sure that whatever Stephen Ministry needed, they got. Great group of volunteers. One of the successes, I think, over the last several years is the Bad Girls. And the numbers that they have and the transformation of lives that has occurred inside that little group. We wanted that to happen other places too. And so we don't know how that did, because it was kind of magical, I think, what happened with Kathy and the gang. But we certainly wanted to figure out how we could do that for the men, for different kind of groups and things of that nature. We haven't figured that out, but we know that that's a thing that we want to make sure that we support and make that continued. And then I talked already about the 100% involvement and how that's never possible to get to, because you always have people walking in that aren't ready to volunteer yet. But we certainly want to make sure that all y'all are doing something to support the kingdom's growth. Next slide. Staffing, as I said, we had just one ordained pastor. We had the search for the youth minister, got that accomplished. The stepping up of better coordination with volunteers, that circle between that slide before and this one certainly intersects a little bit. And kind of the bottom line on that is that, one of the roles for the council, probably the key role is being good stewards, watching the finances and providing the resources that the ministries need to complete their objectives each year. That's certainly the key thing, I think, or one of the key things. But the other thing was that we really needed to keep an eye on the councils, on the staff. Burnout, overload, and with that comes errors and mistakes and frustration and all those other things. And so we wanted to make sure that we were there and staying very conscious and understanding the battle that council, that the staff had in terms of providing all these services, smaller staff, but we didn't want to take a step back. Matter of fact, we wanted to kind of continue to move forward. So we've got a little team that works with pastor once a month, and the council welcomed the staff members to be members of the council themselves, to attend, not as voting members, but to attend each of the meetings so they hear what's going on, and if there's something that they could add as we're going through that, they're the frontline folks. And the staff really responded greatly. All of our meetings this year, by the way, at council were Zoom meetings, every one of them. It was kind of funny. Prior to that, we dabbled in the Zoom meeting here and there, and now it's kind of the way to go. And it's actually worked quite effectively. And we might even have more fun at Zoom meetings because some of it follows dinner, and some of us have wine with dinner. So that's all I'll say for that. We'll move on. Julie keeps us in order, though, sort of. All right, next slide. Then the last big area was stewardship, which is, again, a big area, but we certainly were concerned about the fact that people weren't coming to church. Would they still contribute? Will they still be faithful in their weekly, monthly offerings? And so we really tried to raise some awareness in that area as subtly as we could. We thought that beating folks over the head like a really hard campaign just wasn't the way to go, and so we did that. And as you saw from Jim's report, it worked. We actually, I really want to stand up and cheer when I saw that we were actually in the black this year. Now, we did borrow $12,000 from seeds, but we also added $12,000 into seeds. So, and when it was a $31,000 faith budget, I thought that was a huge success. And I actually think that's the best year in my 4 years here that we came. Yeah, so who knew? The Lord does wonderful things when things are going well, I guess. We certainly are looking into the focus on the people, their talents, as well as the generosity of treasurers. And we've talked about legacy planning, and that's something that we wanted to elevate this year. And we've had Liz Johnson in here a few times. And I see an opportunity for us, and I look at the folks that are in my age bracket and so forth that can be thinking about life-ending legacy planning and things of that nature, and they have some wonderful things that they can do for you in that process. And so we're going to continue that. I've kind of volunteered to be sort of the point person on that in the ensuing years. And of course, we assumed a tight budget and asked the staff to really watch things, and we came in under budget by about $15,000. And so, again, a mission accomplished in spades. Next slide. I think that's it. So in closing, lots of thanks to everybody. It was not a lot of whining, not a lot of woe is me. It was just, all right, let's get her done. And y'all got her done. And so thank you for all that. There was a lot of whining, but it was in a bottle. It seemed that the preference was red wine, but beyond that, no W-H-I-N-E. So with that, that ends the president's report. Turn it over to Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're too kind.
Thank you again, Jack, for your 4 years of service, sir. I will be brief, and I'll hit you with the sermon later. I really do long for the day that I don't have to say the word pandemic, COVID-19, Delta, Omicron, or any of those words. I assume that day will come. We're just not there yet. This year has been quite trying in the sense of we buried more people than I have done probably in my entire career 1 year. In my prior to coming to Tree of Life, I did 50 funerals in 5 years. This year I did 13 funerals in 1 year, and many of those are folks that we knew and loved very well. Laid Jim Vels to rest at Arlington National Cemetery, and we lost Shirley Wilkins, friend of the congregation, Charles Limkins, Lonnie Kennel, who was one of my mentors actually when I first started in ministry, and also my dentist, and golf partner. It's complicated. We lost Dave Cox this year, Gwen Gentry, Barbara Nelson. We lost Philip Corley and Jason Hancock, Tommy Daniels, Clay Mearns, Gail York, and Ann Seedy. Now, you don't necessarily know all those folks, but those are folks this church ministered to and walked with down very dark roads. It should also be added that 4 of those folks died of COVID. That is a significant number in my mind. Needless to say, I was proud to work in this congregation in the sense that we responded to each one of those as if it was valuable and important, because it is. And we'll continue to do so, hopefully on not such a rampant pace this year. I am excited about the new relationships that the pandemic has brought about, in particular with that of the YMCA. If you're not aware, the YMCA closed shop up down the road from us, but still needed a place to do camp. And when I saw the email float through that they were looking for a place, I was on that like you wouldn't believe and made friends as faster than I could. And it was out of that we discovered our new youth director. Once again, Pastor Chris goes shopping. So no longer is he banned at Luther Hill, but the YMCA doesn't let him meet their newest people quite as fast as they used to. The joy of all that is, of course, that we're seeing our fellowship hall and other resources used to their fullest extent during times of dormancy, and that's always a blessing. As far as ministry goes, there's none of this is possible without the help of the staff that serves here. Everyone who has a role here is a leader, and I just want to say thank you to Jill and to John and to Ikira and to Pat Rao, who serves in a volunteer capacity. Without their presence and their dedication, things just would not have happened, especially in the midst of so many deaths this year. They did a wonderful job of stepping up to the challenge, and I deeply, deeply appreciate them, and I'd like to give them a round of applause now. Thank you. Last of all, just personally, been a very difficult year for me in that every time I got exposed to COVID, I had to move out of my house. Hopefully I'm done with that for a while. I don't know where I caught COVID. I hope it wasn't here, but who knows. Challenge of trying to keep my family healthy and being present with you is always a very delicate balance, and continues to be so. But I really appreciate the support and the care this congregation has for me and my family, and I just want to say thank you for that. And hopefully 2022 will be a lot more gentle on the inside than it is in the beginning. My hope is that this current strain that we are in is going to burn pretty quickly through us. And maybe, just maybe, as we move into summer, we'll be looking at very low numbers and a pace where I can be very excited about inviting people back to church without feel like I'm putting them into undue harm. And I really miss that. I miss not being able to invite people to worship without feeling like not knowing their whole story or what's in their best interest. We have been there for just a few minutes here and there, but I look forward to the day when that is a sustainable offer that we can make constant and often. We will continue to find ways to connect with this congregation in our ministry. Right now, every Monday morning at 10 o'clock, I sit down and I start calling all of our shut-ins and find out how life is. I really appreciate Diana Stiglman sitting down with me to do that, so that it's not just me alone doing it. Trying to partner with as many people as I can in these events that I do so that it is a collaborative effort, not just a lone soldier thing. But ultimately, we are heading into very interesting times. I never thought there'd be a day when I'd be sitting around talking with the secretary about camera shots that we were going to need for worship, and yet that is a weekly conversation. It is bizarre. We have a lot of people who attend online. Right now, how many people do we have on Zoom? We had 9 people on Zoom. There's 6 people on Facebook. Some of those people are just showing up now. That's unique. There's a 15-minute delay. Don't worry, we'll be done soon. We're just always having to find ways to recreate this journey. And tactical and short-term goals have really been a big part of how we've gotten where we're at. And I long for the day where we're able to think a little more long-term. I know we'll get there. It's just not today, but that's all right. You all have been resilient and tenacious, and I deeply appreciate your commitment to the work that we do here and to the work we'll be doing next year. That ends my report. Thank you.
We'll close with prayer, and Kevin, you better adjourn this meeting because I'm totally lame duck now, but anyway, I'll take care of it for you, all right?
Come on up, Kevin. And to all of you, the Lord be with you. Let us close in prayer. God, we give thanks for this day, for the leadership, and for those who are willing to serve in the capacity council and in the work and ministry and the life of this congregation. I pray your blessings upon our new leaders, and I pray your blessings upon the people who listen to your voice and respond to your call. In your Son's name, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. All right, Kevin. With no further questions, I adjourn this meeting.
With no other questions, as my first duty. With no further questions, my first duty as president, it's probably the best thing you've heard this morning, we stand adjourned. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.